able to get the input from the session. So the recording has just started now. Without any further delay, I'll get started on the presentation, but a lot of this will be in the live demonstration, so we won't be spending too long on the PowerPoint presentation. So as I said, we're going to look at how to increase accessibility to learning and also accessibility for staff and parents, not just pupils or students here. And we're going to look at something called Microsoft Learning Tools. They are growing all the time, but they're becoming a real key aspect of Office 365 and Windows, because they're embedded across lots of different programs. It's not just they're a set of learning tools online and they run in isolation. They feed through everything. So it means that anything that you use from Microsoft is more accessible. And we'll have a look at how that happens. So as I've said, we are going to take questions in the chat, leave cameras and mics off, and also remember this is being recorded. With learning tools, we're going to look at 3 key areas this morning. There are lots of further learning tools, and we may do those in one of the future webinars. But for today's purpose, we're going to look at Immersive Reader, which is the main learning tool that people will use. And then we'll have a look at the maths tool and how that can be used in different pieces of software and apps that Microsoft have. And also we're going to look at something quite new that Microsoft have only brought in the last month, and that's PowerPoint Presenter Coach, and how that might help in the classroom, but also it can help with teachers working remotely. Question and answers I will come back to at the end. There may be the odd pause as we go through where it's actually the right time to take a few questions as we move maybe from one subject to the next. But please don't be frightened. We're all in one community here. And if you know that you've used one of these in your school and you've got a really good example to share, don't be shy. I don't want everyone just to listen to me talking. So if you want to unmute your mic at a convenient point and share how you're using any of these or success you've had with any of these, please do let us know. I'd be really interested to find out. I learn as much from these sessions as actually sharing what we know with other people. So it's all about an inclusive classroom, whether it's reading, or it's writing, or it's in you're delivering a maths lesson where there's high levels of numeracy or even basic levels of numeracy. But overall, the learning tools are designed to increase the ease of communication between everybody working together, whether it's teacher to pupil or teacher to parents or pupils and parents working together in distance learning. It's around being inclusive, not just in a physical classroom, but in a remote classroom, and also it could be in staff rooms as well. One of the things that Microsoft update every single month is the Learning Tools Grid. It's like a periodic table of learning tools. This presentation will be made available afterwards. So if you're thinking Martin's already covered quite a bit and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to get all the information from, it's quite a common thing. You might be sat there furiously making notes. Well, one of the places to go and get support is the email address at the bottom of this flyer. And this grid gets updated mainly by a person in America called Mike Tholson. He is a guru in Microsoft about learning tools, but he conceived this grid in the first place. But as you can see, different elements down the left-hand side in the blue tiles of the learning tools are available across lots of different software in Microsoft, whether it's Word, Office, PowerPoint, OneNote for those of you who use it. Flipgrid is another app that we'll look at in a future webinar. It could be Forms, which we covered last week. But I also want to emphasize it's available in web browsers. So the new Edge web browser has Microsoft Immersive Reader built in, for instance. And it goes beyond that. Microsoft has started working with partner apps. So a lot of third-party apps that are not owned by Microsoft also have things like Immersive Reader built into them. And Microsoft isn't precious about that. It wants to share it as a way for everyone to be able to access learning or access a meeting or whatever the tool is that you're using. And it's built into other platforms too, and we'll share some of those a little bit later as well. So without any further delay, before we go on to the Math Solver tool, I think what we'll do is jump out of this presentation and we'll go back onto my Office 365 and we'll have a look at Immersive Reader. I think we'll go into OneNote Class Notebook to use that as an example. And what we'll do is show you how to get there first of all. So you might be in your Outlook online. So let's say you were here and you're in your Outlook and you're thinking, well, how on earth do I get across to OneNote? Because I haven't used OneNote before. Well, you go up here to the corner to what's called the App Launcher. And in there should be OneNote. If you can't find OneNote listed in these apps here, it'll be down here in all apps, and then you can open up OneNote. It will either open on top of your Outlook and it will go in the same tab, or it might open up in another tab. And then you'll eventually end up with something like this, OneNote. Here's a OneNote I've been using before. So there are various sections in here, but I'm just going to click on some of the pages. So I'm going to have a look at getting started with OneNote page. This is the self-help page. It's built into OneNote. Everyone is created. So if you were new to OneNote, for instance, you can get some help here. We've got various aspects of OneNote that we could use, but I'm really focusing on the View tab in the ribbon at the top. So this thing here is called the ribbon, and you get different ribbons underneath. And in there is Immersive Reader. As I said, Immersive Reader could be in Teams. You might be using it in Microsoft Office, which could be Word or PowerPoint or Excel. It's built into those. It's also built right into your web browser as well. So this is the Microsoft Edge browser. You click the dots up here. Immersive Reader is in there on the side, but we're going to focus on using it in OneNote or OneNote Class Notebook. If I click Immersive Reader from the View tab at the top, it will change my view of the application I'm reading, and it simplifies it. It gets rid of all of the busyness and the clutter around the outside. And the first time you do it, you might get this tips tab up here. So when you click the different tips, it takes you between them in case you just need to familiarize yourself. But first of all, you arrive and it's exactly the same text as you had in your document or your website, but just with everything else paired out. You can listen to it by pressing play. So if you're somebody who's got a literacy need and you find it difficult to engage with words, or you've got a low reading level, you can press play. And it reads through, it highlights the word that's relevant, and that may be all it needs. It might be just they need accessibility to the text. It could be a parent that also struggles with reading themselves, and it takes away the fear of engaging what the school has sent them. Could be you've sent them a form to fill in. Well, it's in Microsoft Forms as well. But then we can take it one step further. We've got three options up at the top. We've got text preferences, we've got grammar options, and we've also got reading options. We'll go for text preferences first. If you click it on the side, if the size of the font isn't big enough, well, that's not a problem. We can make the text larger. You just drag the slider across. It can go all the way up to a very large size, or it can come back to roughly where we were when we came in. You can increase the spacing between lines. So I had that on when we came in so that the text isn't too dense. Maybe that's something it needs compensating for. So we're going to space the lines out. You also can change the font. At the moment, there are only 3 fonts, but I know a request that keeps coming from Microsoft is to have other fonts in here. So I'm going to change mine over to Comic Sans, which might be easier to access. Also, if you are visually impaired and you need a different colored background, maybe I need a pale sepia color or yellow works best, I can automatically accommodate that in there. There are more colors down here. So if I needed a pale yellow, there we go. I've got that in there instantly. Now I'm not losing the letters in the page because of my visual impairment. They actually stand out to me as they should do. You can also show the source formatting of where it came from, in other words, where the text came from, which is in our case, Microsoft Teams. So that is the text preferences tab. I've got grammar options in there at the same time. So if I wish to have the nouns showing and that highlights them and the text is purple, if I don't want them as purple, that's fine. I can choose a different color, but by default they're in there as purple. If I was using this for a literacy lesson, it really quickly means that the pupils can be independent in their learning, and all of a sudden if they want to know where are the verbs in this paragraph, well, all of a sudden the verbs are standing out there. Or we're going to move on to adjectives next. Well, I don't think, oh, I have got one adjective there. Or I might go into adverbs, and they're all there together. I could show all labels if I don't want to switch them on and off individually, and there we've got the labels above saying that's an adverb. So if that disappeared and the pupil couldn't remember what yellow signified, well, now there's a label there to show that they were adverbs. So it's up to you when you're teaching as to whether you want the labels on and how many of these you want showing up. But it's extremely useful for them understanding the technical English behind there and the reason why you've got them in there. And that might be the whole learning for the lesson, is you're having a SPAG type lesson and you're looking at the nouns and the verbs maybe in a paragraph. So I'm going to go for nouns and verbs. I'm going to switch off adverbs and I'm going to move on to the next tab. The next one is about reading itself. So when I asked the narrator to read the paragraph, it does highlight and it dims out the other parts, but still not good enough for what we might need. So I'm going to pause that again. I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to bring my reader back to the top. I can sound out individual words. So if I just wanted to know what that was, I press on the word and I press that, and it would just read that word for me. So I may not require the whole sentence to be read because I can read most of the sentence, but I've just got a tricky word. Again, that makes pupils independent in their learning. They can go and pick up what that is. It means that you haven't got to pop around the classroom, or they haven't got to come and find you. They could use Immersive Reader in the text that they've got on screen, and all of a sudden they can find out what that word is. You can take it one step further with the reading, so you can implement what's called a line focus. That line focus narrows down only the text that's been read, and it ghosts out or shades out all the other text. So if I take out the line focus and I now press play, the line focus moves with the sentence that's being read. The word that's being read is being highlighted, so that the focus has really been narrowed down. You can change the focus so it's wider. So you could have single focus. Let me turn that off. You could have a double focus. You can choose it there. For some reason, it's not working at the moment, but that should give you a 2-line focus, or it gives you a whole page focus. I'm just going to turn the focus off. You could also choose it to be translated. So at the moment, it's in English, but I might say that I want this to be translated into, let's go down and find some French. And it could be that I have by word or the whole document, and then I read it here, and it will read in the language that I want. If I want to change my settings, it falls over here, and I can go in and I can have it in male or female. That doesn't read. I can change the space as well. So you can also get the text in the form that makes sense for the person that's reading it at the same time. So it will translate it over for them. Immersive Reader is meant to be very quick and easy to jump in and out of. If you think, oh no, I've made all these changes in here, well, how does it affect the original? I press the arrow up in the top left-hand corner, I come out, and there it is. If I want to go back in, and I want to go back into the Immersive Reader, I'm straight back in. There it is. All the settings that I applied before are still there. If I wanted to go in actually now, I don't want to have nouns and I don't want to have verbs showing, I slide them off, and all of a sudden they're gone in the Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader is a really quick and easy way just to get the text that you have on screen into an accessible format. So it's useful beyond the classroom. If you're working in a distance learning situation, you've got parents working with pupils at home. Maybe their first language isn't English, so therefore they're trying to access things in another language. Maybe they struggle with reading because it was one of their barriers to learning at school. Well, it doesn't have to be a barrier to supporting their child at home. You might even have staff that work with you that are dyslexic or have got a various learning requirement, and therefore they can use this to help them in preparing lessons or teaching lessons. So it's quite limitless in about how you apply it. It's a tool that melds itself into the situation it's required. I think that's a good point to have the first pause, and I'm going to pop back over and stop sharing my screen. Just check if anyone's got any questions about that on the side, or if anyone wants to unmute their mic and ask at the same time. Phil has asked, I can't hear your commentary. Is everyone else able to hear me? Ellie?
Sorry, Martin, it's not your commentary. It's when you highlighted the text and you ran the play button. I couldn't hear any of the speech.
Okay, all right. That might be down to the settings on my laptop, Phil. I'll need to fiddle with those afterwards rather than during the session, which might make for a slightly codey. Rest assured, when you press the button, it reads it out in the male or female voice. I appreciate that doesn't come across extremely well in the demo, but I will look at that for the next one we do.
Cool. Cheers, Martin.
Has anyone else got a question? Okay, Polly, you've asked, will this only work with students that are on Teams? If you're using it in Teams, it will only work with the person who's logged into the team, so they do have to be in the team. If you are enabling someone to come in, for instance, let's say guest access, so one of the things we've covered in one of our previous webinars are holding meetings and maybe inviting someone in that's an adult for guest access. You wouldn't invite people into children's teams or children's meetings for safeguarding reasons, but let's say maybe your Senko is having a meeting where they're inviting someone from the local authority. If they came in, they wouldn't be able to get the learning tool, but everyone else that's in the meeting would be able to get the learning tool. So you need to be in the Office 365 system, if you like, want of a better word. But you could also access Immersive Reader if you've got a free Microsoft account. So if you've got an Outlook account or you've got an old Hotmail account, Immersive Reader is still in there as well. Any other questions about Immersive Reader before we move on? Okay, right. I'll just reshare my screen. I'm going to go down to maths. The next area we're going to look at, I might just quickly flip over to the presentation, is using the maths tool. So the maths tool, the maths solver tool, is available in some of the apps in Office 365. So it's available in OneNote, for instance. It's also starting to become available in Office Online. That means the ones that are in the web browser. You will also be able to download it as an app. If you've got an Android phone or a iOS phone, in other words, an Apple phone, it's an app that will install separately. You can also use it as a tab in the web browser too. So it's a standalone tool. It doesn't have to be just a tool that's inside the program, but I'm going to show you it today in OneNote because it's more important that from this app, yes, it does give you the answer. It does solve the maths problem for you, or the calculation or the equation you're looking at, and it will give you the answer. But something I want to emphasize is it helps the pupils with the journey of how they got there, and then makes them quite independent in learning that. And even more powerful than that, it can then create practice quizzes, so you don't have to prepare them in advance. They're all there for you, and the pupils can then take ownership of that. So I've just created a tab in here. You've got sections in your OneNote for those people that aren't familiar. And in the sections, you can create pages. So I've just created a page by pressing the plus page button down here. And I've just titled up maths problems. For those that aren't familiar, when you put the title in here, it titles your page over there. If you've got devices in your school that use a stylus, this is easier, but there's nothing to stop you typing as well. So maths problem can be used by clicking on here. You can type in, I don't know, 7 times 3 equals. That's one way of doing it. You could also go over to the draw tools and you could pick up a pencil, and let's say my pencil is going to be blue, and you could do the same thing here. So let's do 7, and I'm doing this with a trackpad, so this isn't so easy because I don't have a stylus enabled computer. 7 times 3, I'm going to put an extra element to it here, plus 2 equals, and then I can get my math solver tool, and it's over there on the side. My math solver tool is up here in draw. I'm going to get a lasso first, so I'm going to lasso what I've drawn. So I'm just going to lasso out there. So I've got it all highlighted. I'm going to click the maths tool. The maths tool will pick up what I've written in handwriting and try to interpret it. So it isn't always absolutely correct. Therefore, it's picked up a mathematical symbol times 3 plus 2. So you can go back and fix it. You can go back and fix an overtype, or you can overtype again. So let's give this a real scenario. I'm going to highlight across the top. I'm just going to delete that lot. So let's just make it symbol. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to choose my pencil. I'm going to go back in there. So I'm going to go 7 minus 3 plus 2 equals. I'm going to go back over here and I'll highlight it across. I'm going to go into my maths tool, let it have a little think. So that has picked it up this time. 7 minus 3 plus 2 equals. So if you press ink to maths, it will automatically put the equation back in for you. It will also solve it. Now my maths equation tool is clearly having a funny moment here. So if I go back in, I go into maths tool, it should bring us up a solve. Let's just do that again. So let's get rid of that altogether. 7 minus 3. I probably won't like that because it's joined up. So let's get that in there like that. Go back to my pencil. plus 2 and then equals. I'm going to lasso it again. And I'm going to go into my maths tool. And then it should have a option under here, which it hasn't, which is really annoying, and it does happen in sometimes. It should have an option that says that you can see how you got to the answer, and what it explains are the steps you went through. So I'm going to go fix it. Can I change that for a 7? Just going to change that for 7, and then press enter. No, let's try one last time. If it doesn't work, we'll have to abandon the rest of this a little bit. But what it does is it shows you how you got to the answer, so the pupils can be independent in finding the answer. It can also then generate a quiz. So it uses Microsoft Forms, and it takes the question you've got, for example, 7 times 3 or 7 take away 3 plus 2, and it will give pupils a quiz. It generates itself with some similar questions based on the same sort of equation, and then it will more powerfully mark it for them, and it will highlight to them which one they got wrong. And you don't have to be with them whatsoever. And if they got it wrong, the ones that were incorrect, it then brings them back to the journey of how they got to the answer, and it will then help them to find out exactly why it went wrong and where they went wrong and how to make it better. So we've written our equation. I'm going to go there. Oh, I wonder if I can get some quick examples. There is a quick example. Come up here, go back to Draw tab. Let's select it with that. I'm going to click my mouse tool. One last chance before we move on. So I have seen it sometimes with the speed of the internet slow. It does take a little while to come up at the bottom, but it looks to me like it's just not going to play ball today, which is a real shame because I can't show you the other bit. But effectively, it should convert it, solve it down here, show you how you got to the answer, the steps you went through so the pupils can follow them through. And as I said, generate a quiz which can give you a certain number of questions using the same type of questions, the one you've written on screen. So you can choose whether you want to have 5 questions or 10 questions. Pupils can choose that, and then it will self-mark it for them. So you don't even need to go around or share what the answers are. They can just do it here in their program. And then they can start to work through why they got certain questions wrong and go back and look at the method to solve it. So the journey to the answer, so that the answer is not the important thing, is how they got there. It's a shame today it's not going to play ball. It's one of those rare times where it's not, but I'm not able to solve that one in today's demonstration for you. The next part of the presentation is about using the new narrator feature in PowerPoint. So at the moment, it's in PowerPoint Online. For those people that aren't familiar, you will need to go to your OneDrive. Your OneDrive you can access by going to the app launcher, and you go to OneDrive up there in the corner. And then you can go to PowerPoints that you have saved in your OneDrive. If you haven't got any PowerPoints in your OneDrive, you can upload them from your normal computer by selecting Files and Upload, or you can just drag and drop them in. So if you've got a window here, you select a file, you drag it over and you drag it in and let go, and it will upload. Once you've got it online, you can use your PowerPoint in PowerPoint Online. So if you click it, it will open up in another tab, and then you will get here. So I've got a BoardWorks piece of software that I use for teaching maths, and it's got one of my lessons I would use when using place value or ordering or rounding. And what the narrator does as a teacher, or if you've got pupils giving presentations to the class, and the narrator is a learning tool that helps them think about how they present. It stops people going too fast or too slow or getting overly complicated or doing things like reading directly off the slide. So with the coach here, the narrator coach, you need to open up the PowerPoint and it will come open in PowerPoint Online. Again, it only works in the online version for now. It hasn't been rolled out to, for instance, if you've got desktop Office 365 apps, in other words, the ones that are installed on your computer from here is not yet there, but it will be. Also, if you've got version 2019 of Microsoft Office, it will be coming to there, but it won't be coming to anything lower than that. So you need to update if you want to use it in the desktop versions, but it works really well in the online version. So if you click Rehearse with Coach, it will come up there, and then it will take it into presentation mode. So instead of going to presentation mode, you do it in Rehearse with Coach. And you'll get this little pop-up box on the side that says, do you want to start rehearsing? You do. You might also get prompted the first time to let it have access to the microphone on your computer, because it will need to hear your voice as you're presenting. And then it's start real-time feedback. So you want to start rehearsing. The minute you press start rehearsing, it will start listening to you. So the timer counts up, and this microphone in the middle here flashes almost like it's pulsing in and out because it's recording. This just shows you which slide you're on. So you might say, welcome to my maths lesson today. Today we are going to focus on place value, ordering and rounding. One of the things that I want to do with you is look at how we are going to cover those topics. And I am going to speak really slowly, and that is going to be sales. It says, you've got this, keep going, because it's picked up I'm speaking slowly. Okay, I'm now going to start speaking too fast. And I'm going to say, wow, look, we're going to happen in the place value grid on the screen, and we are going to go as fast as we possibly can through this to catch up pace. And then all of a sudden it will start to pick up that I'm going too fast. Also, if you want, let's look at what happens in the place value grid. When we multiply by 100, the 2 digits move 2 places to the left, and it will start to pick it up, and it should pop up. Try speaking a bit slower. I'm going too fast. And then it will start to tell me I'm just reading the words off the side. So there we go. Or if I start, it picks it up. So it starts to give the person it's narrating feedback, and if they're doing it in a laborious way, or if they are starting to get really methodical and about it, try avoid repeating the words off the slide. So it starts to give you hints and tips about how to be better at it, and that will constantly, but it shouldn't appear to the people that are watching it. You are seeing my view because you're on the presenter's view here, but normally you would only see that, and the people that are seeing the presentation wouldn't see that commentary that's coming up. When you've finished, you can pause and you come out of the presentation, and then what you get come up here will be static. They come. So on this dashboard, it will give you your feedback for how you're doing. It will give you things like the summary of how you've gone with rehearsing, how many slides you had during the presentation. It will tell you your average speed. It's loading the data in now, which is loading. It tells you your pitch, whether your pitch is high or low, or whether you're quite boring. Also makes suggestions. Don't do this if you're easily offended about your presentation style, but it will tell you about agency, like if you're reading from the slides, or if you are really good at talking around them and you're not just talking about what's there in front of you. You can go back and rehearse again. So I'd say if you know you're going to practice delivering some distance learning lessons and your presentation is really good, the tool here, the rehearse tool, is a very powerful tool. It's also good for those lessons where you've maybe got pupils to make their own PowerPoints, and you want those PowerPoints to be as dynamic and as interesting and as enthusiastic as possible, where you could get the pupils to do this in small groups or in pairs, and they can have a go at presenting before they present to the class, and they'll get some feedback about how they're doing before they actually come to stand in the front of the class. And you have that session where they're all talking to each other and they're all stood there making their presentation, but they've had a chance to refine it and present it first. And this gives some really good input about what you're doing. It also gives some suggestions for making things more polished there, like adding filters on top. Also gives you phrases so you can learn more. So it's not just what's on the dashboard. You can branch off and you can go and find it back as well. You can download your feedback if you wish, so the feedback can come out of here and you can get a report. So if you wanted to get a report of that about how they've improved from the first run through, so when they're at the end, as a teacher, you can get their report sent over to you. They can either send them in Teams, or they could put them in their OneDrives, or they could email them if you use email in your school. So you find that by going to slideshow in the ribbons on Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you go to rehearse with Coach. It launches the presentation, you go start rehearsing and it's in there. So it will just take care of itself for you. So you don't launch the presentation the normal way. Most people would go and launch the presentation by, there we go, there's my analytics, would launch the presentation by pressing launch mode and then off you go, but you don't need to do that. You could also use subtitles as well. So once that goes, if you want to put subtitles, you can have the subtitles down there. You can have it in the spoken language is UK, but the subtitle language might be French. So if I was presenting on my subtitles, so I'm speaking in English, and what it will hopefully do in a moment is turn it into French. So if I was presenting to a French audience, all of a sudden they would be able to hear what I was saying here in English, but that made no sense whatsoever. So they don't even need an interpreter anymore. They don't need to be able to understand English. The narrator and the interpreter built into Office will automatically put it on the screen. Again, this feature is in online Office, it's not in desktop Office, but as you can see, that's going to the internet. It's using a conversion tool called Translate from Microsoft Online, and then all of a sudden it puts it in there. It won't get every word perfectly, but if we've got any French speakers on the call, they might be able to confirm that most of that is correct. Just going to come out of that presentation. So that's another feature. So both of those are in the slideshow tab on the ribbon. Rehearse with Coach helps you rehearsing, and then using subtitles helps you convert your subtitles into other languages. As far as today's presentation is concerned, it's quite a short presentation because we are being compact in what we're doing, and we're looking at how to increase the accessibility to what you're doing. We've got a link here in the presentation which you can get afterwards to Immersive Reader. We've also got one for the maths tool. The PowerPoint Presenter Coach, unfortunately, because it's so new, it hasn't got anything that I can link you to. But if you search online, there is a one-page website article to that. There's Immersive Reader and resources. For any of you that aren't familiar, those resources go to the Microsoft Education community. So if I pop over to the web browser where I have my demo, open it up, the links will take you directly to it. But people often ask, well, Martin, you've covered an awful lot in these sessions. Where on earth do I get some support materials? Well, if you go to the Microsoft Education Center, where the community of people there that are also doing this sort of thing, you can go to explore courses. So if I wanted to know maths tool, if there was anything in there, I don't think there is because maths tool is also quite new. Let's try Immersive Reader. There we go. There's Immersive Reader and the course I've linked you to. Well, there's the course. You sign up for a free login here and you can start the course. It's got guides, it's got videos, it will take you through, but even better still, you get qualifications. So you get Microsoft points. So you can get yourself qualified in the Microsoft Education Center. So we always build those in as additional resources to be available after the session. For what I would like you to do following this session, I'd like you to have a go at a couple of things. So use Microsoft Immersive Reader. It does improve accessibility. You can either try it in a Microsoft app or a partner app. Those partner apps, I will take you to a few of those in a bit. You can then get people involved. If they weren't able to access that text before, they will be able to access it with Immersive Reader. If they've got a different language, they can get a hook in there. Try creating something like a class notebook because they're useful within the Teams learning we've covered before. If you didn't cover the Teams webinars with us previously, they're available on our Turn It On YouTube channel, and Ellie's on the call here. We'll be able to send links for those if you want to go back and see how to use Teams and OneNote class notebook. But try using things like the Math Solver tool in there. Hopefully it won't be as cranky with you as it has been with me today. And also have a go with the PowerPoint remote narrator on there too. And also don't forget those subtitles. They are there to help you at the same time. I'm going to pop back over to the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if anyone's put any questions in the conversation on the side of the team. I haven't got any there, but at this point in time, it's the opportunity for you to unmute your mic, and you could also ask me just directly if you've got any questions about them.
Hi, Martin. I've got a question. I just wondered, it's a bit of a basic one probably compared to what we've been through, but is there any option anywhere that I can record like a voice note for my students? Because basically I've sent packs of work home for them, for those students that can't access the internet, etc. or just struggle with the ability to do so. So they've got physical packs at home, but what I'd like to do is read through some of the pages in those packs and just upload a voice note or something like that. Is there something that I can do directly on the laptop?
Yeah, you could use Meet now in Teams. I'll reshare my desktop with you. So if you, how much are you using Teams, Polly?
So we're using staff-wise, we're using them for meetings, etc. But I haven't used them with the students yet.
Okay. So you could go into, it doesn't really matter where you go into. So you could go into a staff team. So for instance, we've got lots of teams, but if I quickly go over to, let's go into my demo ones in here. So let's say I've got my staff team. You could go into here and down the bottom here where you normally start typing in posts or something, you've got an option called Meet Now.
Right.
If you went into Meet Now, it's asking me to allow because I'm going in a double loop here. Let's just check. Continue. Oh, come on, don't be cranky. Let me go in there. Allow. That's gone in. All right, I might show you in our team actually if it's going to be like that. Open that back up. So if I went into, let's go into one of our teams that we use as a company. So it might be the Microsoft Educator community because we've got an educator community we work with. If I went into the Meet Now, I could then go into Meet Now, and on Meet Now, I disable the camera, but it would make an audio recording, and then that audio recording could be then shared with the pupils, or you could use a really simple program on your computer, such as Audacity. Have you got Audacity on your laptop? It's free.
I'm not sure. I can check it out.
It's, let me get that link up for you on the internet now. Audacity is this app here. So you just download it from there on the Windows version. That's completely free. When I've taught podcasting and things like that in lessons, I've often used Audacity, and then it will just record it, and then you could upload the recording onto your Teams or wherever you want to share it. So if you don't want to use Teams, or Teams is being a pain for you, Audacity's great and it's completely free.
All right, fantastic. I might use that because then it just means that if the kids, because the kids haven't used Teams yet, so it just means that I could put it on their homework.
Yeah, by all means. Yep, absolutely. If you get any problems with it, Turn It On Consultant can help you as well. We're all quite familiar with Audacity. It's been around for a very long time. Any other questions? Silence. No, okay. Well, if I have covered anything too fast, I'm quite happy to stay on and have individual conversations afterwards. But if not, I'll say thank you for today. And tomorrow we don't have a webinar, but on Wednesday, from the links you were sent from your team managers or your consultants, we've got another webinar. Wednesday's webinar will be around Google, and then Friday's webinar will be back on Office 365 and Microsoft again. The agenda for each week is always emailed out by the team managers or by the consultants, so you can sign up for them through the Eventbrite, and we'll be continuing these over the coming weeks. At the moment, we're focusing on features that are available in either Office 365 for Microsoft schools or G Suite for Google schools, but may in the future branch out to other free applications. We're looking at those, but certainly in the coming weeks, we'll continue these webinars. So thank you for coming along. I appreciate your time. If you've got any questions, by means, unmute your mic. I'll stay here for a bit or pop them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you for coming, and I will see you on one of the future sessions.